What are some examples of legislation that has been passed so far this year?
Right now we're at about the halfway point in the legislature, and the Senate has passed Senate bills, the House has passed House bills. So we're in the halftime and the bills cross, and the Senate has taken up several important pieces of policy. I'll mention just a couple. We passed a very important bill to transition Washington State off of coal to cleaner sources of energy. It's a bill we've been working on for a long time. I'm very excited that we passed it. It would mean by 2025 we would no longer have coal as a source of energy in Washington State, be moving to cleaner sources of energy for both our air quality and to reduce our dependence on dirty sources of energy. We also passed a medicinal marijuana regulation bill. The voters passed an initiative that said they wanted medicinal marijuana to be available for people that are suffering from certain kinds of health conditions, and we lack a regulation system. So this really significant piece of legislation would start to set up the framework for dispensaries so that patients around the state would have access to safe, quality medication when they had the prescription for it. Another piece of legislation we passed was a piece of unemployment insurance reform that both lowers the taxes that employers pay for unemployment insurance, especially small businesses, freezes the taxes that other businesses pay, and in addition, we were able to add a increased benefit for unemployed workers. Our state has one of the healthiest unemployment insurance trust funds in the whole country. Some states are going bankrupt, but Washington State's fund is healthy, and so we could afford to give employers a tax break as well as give workers who are unemployed some additional money, which will help them meet their basic expenses until they can find a job.
What is the revenue forecast and what does it mean?
In Washington State, we have an objective economist who tells us how much revenue is coming into the state, and we have to arrange our budget so that it meets that number. We don't run a deficit, and so as that forecast comes out every 3 months, we adjust our budget. We just got the revenue forecast. It's not good news yet. The revenue forecast went down by another $700 million.
Most of this is because of the slower economic growth now expected because of higher oil prices, lower confidence, and greater uncertainty.
Unfortunately, that means that the legislature will have to pass a budget that has even more reductions than the proposal that the governor made in December.
What options do legislators have to solve the budget crisis?
Well, in the past, in my time in the legislature, when we've had a budget shortfall this large, an economic crisis this deep, we've generally taken a balanced approach. We've done some things on the cut side and some things on the revenue side to fill the shortfall. Right now, we're operating kind of with one hand tied behind our back. Voters passed Initiative 1053. It says that you have to have a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate, even to close a tax break. And a 2/3 vote is very hard to achieve. And my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have said they won't support closing tax breaks or increasing revenue. So we will be balancing this budget either by a full reform and efficiencies that we could create in how state services are delivered, or reductions in state services, in education, and in higher education. So I think it's going to be a very tough budget for most people in Washington State for the next 2 years.
What are your key priorities for this session?
I'm mostly concerned about the budget situation, especially from a Spokane perspective. We are very proud of our Spokane public schools, but if state funds go down, class sizes will get larger, and it will be harder for teachers and students to have a quality education experience. Higher education is really important in Spokane, and when the budget goes down, we end up raising tuition, and one of my priorities is to see that we also keep financial aid increased so that we maintain access to higher education. We also have a lot of people in Spokane who qualify for the basic health plan and some child care support, and some of the programs that really form our social safety net. And I'm very concerned that with reductions in those services, some Spokane families and neighborhoods are really going to feel the pain of those reductions.
We hear a lot of doom and gloom from Olympia. Is there any good news to share?
Good news is hard to come by in Olympia this year because of the budget situation. On the other hand, a lot of people have become involved in figuring out what's happening in Olympia, coming to the legislature, advocating, rallying, contacting us, standing up on behalf of the things they believe in. And I think that is the good news, is that the democratic process is really alive, and that although there are lobbyists and special interests and money that often determines outcomes around here, on the other hand, activists, citizens, and people who just care about their community can come down here, tell their story, and make a difference.